Hello, it is that time. I am Anthony Mueller, the wine advocate reviewer for South Africa and Washington States. Today, I have a very young, talented winemaker. He comes all the way from Klein Constantia, Matthew Day. Let's see if we can get Matt Day on the phone. Connecting. And we are in.
There you go.
Oh, Matt, how are you doing,
Hey,
sir?
Anthony, how's it going?
Very well, very well. Yourself?
Good, good.
Fantastic. I'm gonna
Is that my sound?
that right? There we go. Little boom. There we go. Awesome. So thank you for connecting today. I know that it is late your time. It's what, 10 p.m. there?
10 o'clock, yeah.
10 o'clock. Awesome.
No, we're
Yeah.
kind of used to it by now, so all good, man.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you. First of all, I know that in the States we don't really consume that much South African wine. We consume about 5 to 7% of the overall production. For those of our viewers who don't already know Klein Constantia, what it is and who you are, could you please give us a quick background of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Brilliant. Well, quick introduction. So, yeah, I've been winemaker at Klein Constantia, I think, for the last 8 years. And that's pretty much where my story began. You know, I don't like to say it, but I'm a farm boy from the south of Johannesburg, which is literally miles away from any vineyards, for those of you know South Africa. I graduated at the University of Stellenbosch, worked in Barossa Valley at Alderton, worked at Neerlist in Stellenbosch before that, and worked in France at Belfast, and then literally started this amazing journey at Klein Constantia. I started as a cellar hand, and to get into my interview or to get the job as a cellar hand, I literally walked in with a bottle of wine that I had made at Neerlist. I bought some grapes, bought a barrel, walked in, slapped the bottle of wine on the table and said, well, look, try this wine. If you like it, you can give me the job. If you don't like it, you carry on with the interview. So I got the job as a cellar hand, eventually became assistant winemaker, still did all the really hard work, the cleaning of the tanks, scrubbing the floors and all the rest. And then Klein Constantia was sold in 2011. And my predecessor, Adam Mason, actually moved to Stellenbosch to Mulderbosch. And the new owners of Klein Constantia said, well, flip, Matt, you're really young. I think I was 25 years old then. We'll give you the chance. If you prove yourself, you can have this incredible job with this incredibly historic brand. And in those days, it was unheard of to have such a young winemaker working at a place like this. So I had to prove myself, and I'm still here today. So I'm loving life. I mean, yeah. Good.
So out of the pot and into the fire, as they say.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So South Africa has been hit fairly hard with regulations, with COVID, with the shutdown, with quarantine. First off, how are you doing right now in South Africa? Like how are you?
Look, it's been pretty sketchy the last couple of months. I'm not going to lie to you, but it's been difficult all over the world.
Yeah.
And I must say, I mean, Cyril Ramaphosa has been an incredible president and leader in South Africa, and we're truly proud to be South Africans. Although there's been a couple of challenges, and one of them is we haven't been able to export wine for a long time, and only recently we've been able to sell wine in South Africa. So it's been tough times, but at the end of the day, I mean, I can't complain. To be honest, I'm actually loving the lockdown, because what it means is we can focus on what we actually do, away from all the other distractions of life. You know, I don't have to travel and go do tastings and you know, go and visit people overseas and do whatever it is. I don't have people coming through to the cellar. I don't have to do lunches. You know, all those cool, glamorous things about winemaking that everyone thinks that winemakers do all the time. I'm not doing that, which means I'm actually working in the cellar. 2020 has been made with my hands. It's been two of us. It's been John Nels. Yeah, it's been awesome. Farmers have been farmers, and winemakers have been winemakers this year, which is incredible. Yeah, things are back to normal, kind of. We still don't have many people working in the cellar, but the vineyards are back up and running. We're exporting wine. Sales have gone really well. yeah, there was a crazy couple of weeks as soon as they lifted the ban on alcohol. I mean, people must have drunk like fish in those couple of weeks. And yeah, it's good times. So we can't complain too much. Obviously, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to take a couple of years to recover from this.
For sure.
But for those of us who do recover, are going to be stronger for it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's my positive outview, I guess.
Say again?
That's my positive outview of what has happened.
You've got to keep a positive, outlook and stay positive, because if you don't, it's not good. The sale of alcohol was overturned about 3 weeks ago. So now South Africans are allowed to purchase alcohol again.
Yeah.
So it's been since the lockdown first began, it's been months that you haven't been able to purchase alcohol. Yeah,
it's crazy. I ran out of obviously I've got an endless supply of wine. Don't tell anyone that I was drinking wine during lockdown. But I ran out of beer about 3 weeks before the end of the lockdown of alcohol, and it's been tough, I must say. Yeah, no, but as soon as it opened up again, I mean, people were buying a lot of wine. And then there was a rumor. I must say we're quite grateful for the rumor. I think it must have been one of the liquor store owners that started a rumor that they're going to ban alcohol again. So there was another second wave of people just buying.
Second spike of buying. Yeah. Pretty brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about Klein Constantia's history. It comes with a long history of winemaking. The property established back in 1685. Some of the greatest South African sweet wines have been made from the property. Can you just kind of talk about the history about the estate?
Cool. I need to start with this though. We love to talk about history. History is a very important part of what Klein Constantia is and what Constantia Valley is. But today we're more looking to the future and what we have here at the property at the moment. So we're trying to forget about the history and focus on what we're trying to achieve. And what we're trying to achieve is greatness in the Venda Constance. But going into history, I mean, I could talk for hours on history. I promise you I won't. We've been quite fortunate that we've inherited a lot of information, and we've also hired a historian to go through and do research and figure out a lot of what actually happened. A lot of things have come out of the woodworks, and it's really interesting. But long story short, I mean, the Constantia Valley was founded in 1685. For those of you who know Cape Town, and I'm sure most people do, Cape Town was settled, and we were literally part of the causeway from the harbour to Cape Town city itself. So they started this farm. It was Simon van der Stel, and he was granted any land that he pleased. And I always say it's because of the beauty of the land, but he was quite smart in those days in that he surveyed all the soil and the land and all the rest, and decided that this was the perfect spot. He didn't make it famous. He just created a commercial vineyard. And most people think of South Africa, New World. Guys, this is 1685. This is a long time before most of the New World even thought about making wine. So they're pretty damn smart in those days. The reason why we're still here today, and the Constantia Valley is still here today, is because of that beautiful sweet wine of Constantia, the Venda Constance as we call it today. The only reason why that became famous is because of the sugar. And sugar acted as a preservative. They didn't have the science and technology as what we have today. So the wine could last the voyage all the way back to Europe. And it was enjoyed by kings and queens and aristocracy. And we're going to rattle off all the people. I was looking at it today, and I'm pretty sure that George Washington was one of them. Our favorite story is talking about Napoleon. Napoleon used to get an allocation of the sweet wine of Constantia and exile on St. Helena. Which is brilliant. So Jane Austen wrote about it, Charles Dickens wrote about it. All these incredible people of our past. It was one of the most iconic cult wines out there. And we kind of lost our way, about 100 years ago. So there are a whole lot of contributing factors from, phylloxera and oidium. We stopped trading with the English, and the English started trading with the French and so forth. And anyway, long story short, Klein Constantia is back today. We've recreated the Venda Constance. The farm has always been going on since then, but only in 1986 did the Eurster family buy Klein Constantia, and they had the vision to recreate the sweet wine of Constantia, and that's what we've been doing ever since. And obviously the goal is to take it back to its former glory. Sorry, long story short. But it's an incredible spot, and you know, we're in the foothills of the Constantia Berg, which is literally a suburb of Cape Town. We couldn't ask for a better place. You know, right between the ocean on both sides. We've got the altitude, we've got the slopes. I can see why Simon van der Stel in those days founded this land or started the farm here, you know.
Beautiful. Yeah. I was actually on your on the website yesterday, and the website has a lot of great little videos, and you even have some on your Klein Constantia Instagram page. The time-lapse videos are just utterly fantastic. You can see the fog line start to come up, because as towards the top of the property, the property gently slopes up to the west, and the fog kind of comes in. You can see it, and as the harvesters are coming through at night, they look like falling stars or like planes taking off in a time-lapsed thing. You can see them go by and then go around and do all the tries and the passes through collecting all the grapes. Whoever your videographer is, great job. Really, really cool stuff.
Great job.
Worth a look. Yeah, Klein Constantia, you know, Vinda Constance definitely put you on the map. But currently, Sauvignon Blanc is really what the focus is all about. And I have in front of me, and I'm drinking the sample that was sent earlier, or technically it was later last year. But there's the 2018 Clara Sauvignon Blanc. Do you want to talk about this wine at all? First off, do you have this wine as well?
Of course, yeah. So
awesome. That's
actually how it looks. So I promise you that's not my handwriting, but that's pretty damn smart handwriting on that bottle. That was a sample bottle. We had to let you try this. Clara Sauvignon Blanc, and you know, I'm going to get into the Sauvignon Blanc story here a little bit, because you know, other than Van der Constance, our main focus is Sauvignon Blanc. I'm an absolute avid Sauvignon Blanc fan. And I think that too many people are kind of ruining the reputation of this incredible varietal. It's one of the most pure and noble varietals out there that expresses its sense of place more than any other wine that you can get. And there's too many of the kind of cheaper, tutti frutti style Sauvignon Blancs out there. And our vision at Klein Constantia is to kind of get out there and say, look guys, if you do it properly, you can make something incredible. You can represent a sense of place. You can bring out a hell of a lot of texture into the wine, salinity and all the rest, and you can make a pretty damn smart wine that is world class. So Clara is one of those attempts. It's a very new wine. It's actually a wine that we've made primarily for the USA market. So we made it for the USA market. We made a style that is very appealing to that market. And we've kind of grown on it since then. And what it is, you mentioned the pictures of the fog rolling in the morning. I still remember that day harvesting this year. That literally on our highest vineyards on Klein Constantia. And please guys, check out the website. You can see, you know, we range up to 320 meters above sea level. We've got 6 single vineyards on top of the mountain, basically. From these 6 single vineyards, we've isolated literally barrels from every single one. We ferment them separately. It's a wild fermentation. We don't add sulfur, crush, put it into barrel. We try and make a monster rock star Sauvignon Blanc. And then after 9 months in barrel, we nitpick that perfect blend. So it's big, it's bold, but it's also got a lot of structure to it as well. So it's the 2018 vintage that you're trying. And for me, it's an incredible wine.
For sure, it's really tasty stuff. It has, I mean, it still has beautiful freshness. I mean, granted, it is still young, 2018, but there's like this beautiful, like pristine, crystalline citrus and like this black currant bud. It's unmistakably Sauvignon Blanc. So for Sauvignon Blanc lovers out there, you should definitely give this a try. It's great. So you mentioned just briefly at the very beginning that you think there's some Sauvignon Blanc winemakers not doing it correctly? What do you think they're missing?
Look, a lot of guys are making Sauvignon Blanc as a cash cow. So they're literally harvesting the stuff. They're probably planted it in a poor Sauvignon Blanc region that's warmer and all the rest. Yeah. They're cropping it massively, and they're just trying to create a wine that, you know, is manipulated. So, and I hate using these terms because in no way at Klein Constantia do we make natural wines. We make pure minimalistic style Sauvignon Blancs. So a lot of guys, they'll smash it with a lot of yeast. They'll use whatever tricks they can in their book. You literally get a catalog of things that you can do to wine from the chemical suppliers, and they say you can add this and that and the next thing, and you stir the leaves. And, you know, I heard some crazy tricks that the guys do down south on the other side of the world to try and give it all these flavors. And a lot of these wines the flavors that they develop are primary flavors from fermentation. They don't last longer than 6 months in the bottle. And that's why people have this image of Sauvignon Blanc that it is tutti frutti and it doesn't last.
Sure.
Whereas, you know, we're still opening the 1986 Klein Constantia Sauvignon Blanc, and it is one of the greatest wines I've ever tasted, and it's still perfect to this day. So if you do it right, you can create something special.
For sure. Yeah, to talk about, you know, the wines you're talking about, the early release wines that are meant to be consumed within the year, there's definitely a market for that. And there's a freshness, a vibrancy, and a simplicity that just brings joy, and it's non-cerebral, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. But I think anyone who follows Sauvignon Blanc has clearly taken their palate through the Loire, through Bordeaux, and tried Bordeaux Blanc, and certainly through Napa Sauvignon Blanc as well. And there is something to be said about freshness, but what you're talking about is building all the complexity and layers in the wine that makes it long-lived, makes it highly complex, and very, very delicious and food-friendly. So yeah,
food-friendly is number one. I mean,
for sure.
I guess number one is that 2 glass, 1 bottle kind of phrase. You know, you don't want to just drink 1 glass, man. I don't want to go to my favorite saying, but usually Sauvignon Blanc's the only thing that makes your mother-in-law smile, and that's purely because of the acidity. She's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're trying, and we believe that we've got a great terroir for it, so it can work here.
Yeah, you've definitely put a lot of focus into Sauvignon Blanc for the estates, so much so that you have all these different blocks outlined and detailed into which block of Sauvignon Blanc is doing what. And you even have a collaboration with your Matisse bottling. Can you talk about how that all came about with Pascal Jovier from Sancerre, and kind of walk us through the project and how it all started?
Cool. Perfect. So in 2012, I was very fortunate to spend a harvest in Sancerre with Pascal Jovier. He's actually a very close friend with our managing director, Hans Astrom. So, you know, Hans said, Matt really needs to learn about what pure Sauvignon Blanc is all about. So I kind of went out there. I'd been dabbling with some more minimalistic style Sauvignon Blancs before that. Nice. Got out there, and, you know, I always used to think that Sauvignon Blanc is made in the cellar, you know, it's made by the yeast and all those kind of things. Got to Pascal Jolivet and Sancerre, and they literally took me out into the vineyards, and they showed me the soil, they showed me the land, you know, they took me from plot to plot to plot in Puy and Sancerre and all the rest. And they kind of said, oh, look, Matt, you know, pick up the soil, taste it, get a feel for it. You taste those grapes, and then you go back to the cellar and you taste 6 different wines from 6 different blocks. And I was blown away because every single wine had that characteristic of that terroir, whether it's the chalk or the flint or whatever it is. And it's mind-blowing because that is what wine's about. That's the true beauty of why I'm a winemaker, why most winemakers are winemakers. Yeah. So that started that way, Wolf. And, you know, Pascal's style is don't add anything. So no sulfate crush, oxidize the juice, no settling enzymes, straight into tank, wild fermentation. In those days, it was a guy called Jean-Luc Sauty. He had worked for Pascal for something like 27 years. And he was the most chilled out French winemaker I've ever met. Everything was ça la vie, Matt, it'll be okay, you know. And the wine could be absolutely terrible in tank. You'd be like, oh, Matt, don't worry, it'll be perfect. So Jean-Luc actually came out to do harvest with us in 2013. And Jean-Luc and I got on really well. He shared a lot of his philosophy with me, his 27 years of winemaking. And one day we were literally walking through one of the vineyards and we were tasting grapes. And he's like, oh, Matt, this is perfect for my style of making wine, you know? So we decided then to literally harvest the grapes, make it in his style. And again, his style was completely controversial to what my university professors had taught me. We'd done everything wrong. We abused the wine as much as we could. And it turned out absolutely beautiful. So we had to, I mean, after tasting it, I think Pascal flew out. We tasted the wine together and kind of said, well, we have to start this joint venture where Klein Constantia and Pascal Jolivet will have this exchange where myself or Jean, our assistant winemaker, will go across to Sancerre and their winemaker will come to Klein Constantia every year. And we're still going today. I mean, in fact, his son does a lot of marketing for us. He's one of our brand managers. So we have this great close relationship. Yeah, I kind of needed last year. I went out to Sancerre just to get that feeling back again. It was incredible just to, you know, smell the soil, feel the land, taste the grapes, get a feeling.
Great. What time of year did you go?
I went out for harvest. So I was there in middle of September.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So with the property, let's just chat a little bit about your property. A lot of Sauvignon Blanc there, a lot of different plots. What do you find so compelling about the plots and the Sauvignon Blanc at Klein Constantia?
Sure. Well, the fact that we've got one farm that is cheap as now to figure out the math. I think it's 65 hectares. I'm probably wrong. It's probably 85. We're 125 hectares in total. We've got south-facing vineyards. We've got east-facing vineyards. We've got north-facing vineyards. We've got vineyards that range from 70 meters above sea level right the way up to 320 meters above sea level. And then we've got two massive factors that come into all of our wines, but they show in the Sauvignon Blanc massively, is we've got 500 to 600 million year old decomposed granite. And that's in the higher lying soils of the farm, and it's a lot of the underlying soils. And then we've got sandstone, so Table Mountain sandstone. Everyone knows Table Mountain. It's eroded off Table Mountain into our vineyards. And those two create a massive factor in the Sauvignon Blancs. Sandstone is much like the chalk in Sancerre. It gives that round texture, that broad round fatness. And the granite is kind of, I hate saying this, it's kind of like a dirty flint for me. So it brings out a salinity, a spicy or umami character into the wine. And if you can get that combination in our estate Sauvignon Blanc it's 36 blocks, blended together. Each block has all of those. You can get that perfect blend of saline, spice, fatness, richness, aromatics, and all the rest. And you can create a special wine.
For sure.
That is geeky Sauvignon Blanc for talk for you. Sorry.
Just a second.
That is super geeky Sauvignon Blanc talk for you.
Oh, it's great. No, we love it. It's awesome.
Awesome. So, but, we do a couple of other wines. We make Riesling. We do bubbles. So we make a Method Champenois out of Chardonnay. We make a red wine. What am I forgetting? We make some rosé as well. But yeah, the core focus is Sauvignon Blanc and Vin de Constance.
For sure. For those of our viewers and readers who don't know the ownership of Wilca and the correlation there between Bordeaux, can you just briefly talk about that real fast?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, cool. No worries. So Klein Constantia has always had ties with Wilca. And Wilca was actually owned by the previous owners of Klein Constantia, as well as Bruno Prats and Hubert de Bois. Bruno used to own Costa Esnel and Hubert owned Chateau Angelus. And with the new ownership of Klein Constantia, we have bought Wilca, and Bruno and Hubert have become shareholders in Klein Constantia. And Wilca, long story short, is our red wine estate in Stellenbosch. It's our big focus in terms of red. And it's a property that we have Bruno and Hubert that are super passionate about, and they're trying to make an incredible example of red from South Africa. It's not often that a young winemaker like myself can literally phone up Bruno or Hubert to talk about wine, have them on speed dial. But I must stop there. I don't make the wine at Anwilka. It's a different winemaker. It's Sean Duplessis. But we do have a very close relationship between the two farms and winemakers and all the rest.
Yeah, very, very different style. I mean, Stellenbosch much warmer. Klein Constantia, it's cooler, moderated by the closer influences right there by the sea. It's all about Sauvignon Blanc today. So let's focus on thinking back to. I still have that image of heading up that hill in that Jeep that you drove me up to the very top of the property to look down, and that ultimately was the main picture of South Africa Part 1, looking down of all of the Cape and all the different vineyards you have as it kind of slopes down back to the vineyard. When you took me up there, you had some very clever things that you've done with the property, as well as one of them being that I found most intriguing was having a sacrificial vineyard on the other side of the fence for the property line, because you have South Africa has a baboon problem where baboons can literally run in, and they are massively strong. They can grab one cordon and then literally rip it off. What happens is, from what I understand, is they eat the grapes that might be underripe, and they're not intelligent enough to figure out all the other grapes aren't going to be right, so they just continue to eat the grapes, rip them off, and then. So tell us about how that came about, and other interesting things you have on the property with Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, so when we have management meetings and all the rest, one of the hottest topics, and it's probably the second most spoken about topic in our meetings, is the topic of baboons. So I can speak for hours about baboons. And I'll never forget, I did a tasting, and sorry, I'll get to the sacrificial block now. I did a masterclass of Klein Constantia release in London, and we had Neil Martin at the tasting. And he quoted me in the Wine Advocate comments, speaking about baboons. And I think I started an urban legend that day. And I'm sorry for the viewers that don't really want to listen to this, but there's a story about the baboons, and they're super intelligent. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So there's a story about guys putting up an electric fence, and some days it would be on and other days it wouldn't be on, and the baboons would get through, and some days they'd get shocked and all the rest, and the other days they wouldn't. And eventually what they started doing is they'd take the babies and they would throw them against the fence. And when they got shocked, they wouldn't go through. When they didn't get shocked, they would pass through the fence. So that's how intelligent they are. We have an electric fence all the way around the perimeter of Klein Constantia. It still doesn't stop them. They still take the shock to get through. And you picture it, there's really ripe, beautiful fruit on the one side of the fence, on the other side there's foraging and hard work to get their food. So they're constantly a problem. So we've got the electric fence. We've also got a team, I think, of 3 guys, as well as the city of Cape Town gives us about another 6 guys that constantly patrol the fence, and they're equipped with paintball guns. Okay. So nothing lethal. It's literally just paintballs, and you have to have a permit. And a lot of people say, "Chief, is Matt, I really want to come work on the farm and be a paintball monitor, and I can play paintball the whole day."
Sure.
So what they do is they deter the baboons by shooting paintballs at them. And that kind of just scares them off the farm. And when the baboons see them, they run away and all the rest. The other thing that we've done to stop the baboons destroying all the fruit is right up on top of the farm, where all our single vineyard beautiful vines are that we make the Clara and the Block 32 and all the rest. On the other side of the fence, at 320 meters above sea level, we've got a block of vineyards that we look after. We produce grapes, we prune, we do everything, we spray, we do everything that we possibly can to create grapes that the baboons can go out and eat. So they'll go and eat that, and they'll destroy that block, and eventually it'll keep them out of our pristine vineyards until we can kind of harvest. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very smart. That's with electric fences. Even here, in the States, some people have electric fences, and deer are a serious problem. And deer are beautiful, majestic animals, but they can leap like nobody's business. They just hop over that fence, no problem. They go in there, just eat everything away. It's crazy. So it's a very, very smart thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of intriguing blocks with Sauvignon. How many specific blocks do you have?
Oh my golly, I think we have about 56 different blocks on the farm. The vineyard manager of Klein Constantia is probably cringing. He's like, Matt, you've been here 11 years. How don't you know this? But it's a lot.
Yeah.
We keep every single block separate in the cellar, and I should kind of know this because we've got heaps of tanks in the cellar, and it's not because we're making large volumes of wine. It's because we're trying to, harness the characteristic of every single block. So we do have a lot of blocks, and every block is planted on its own soil type, own slope, own everything. And the idea is that every block has got a personality, and we have to harness that as winemakers.
For sure. How many different clones are you using there?
We're traditionally using commercial clones on the normal cultivars, but when it comes to Vin de Constance, it's actually quite an interesting project. Is the block of Muscat de Frontignan that we use for the Vin de Constance is it's basically a Marseille selection, and the vines that were the cuttings that were used for that were said to have come from the cuttings that Simon van der Stel, or it might have even been Jan van Riebeck in those days, in the 1600s, would have brought into the Cape. So we've got thousands of different clones of Muscat de Frontignan that we have planted in this block. And from that, we've got this beautiful mother block. And in order to protect our heritage of Vin de Constance going forward in the future plantings, we've actually isolated 200 of those strongest performing vines. And from those 200, it's through the University of Stellenbosch and various other institutions, we've been able to isolate 6 different clones of Muscat de Frontignan that we're going to literally call the Vin de Constance clone, and we can use for planting in future dates. And other people can buy it, and people can buy that and plant it in their vineyards and go wild. But it's quite nice to have that story and all the rest, and keep to the history of what it is.
For sure. So would you keep a clone then somewhere, say, secured somewhere at the wine university, so they could basically put it in a nursery, produce them out, and then put auction them up to people who wanted them? Hopefully
we're the only ones that really use it, but pretty much that. I mean, going forward, you can buy that clone and go ahead with it.
Cool. Can you quickly talk about the total production of the estate as it pertains really just to Sauvignon Blanc and Vin de Constance?
Sure. So in terms of what we do at the estate, we make about 450,000 bottles a year. In the greater scheme of things, it's tiny in South Africa, but we are a relatively large producer in Constantia. I mean, Constantia is a tiny little area. Most of that is Sauvignon Blanc. We used to do about 10 different ranges, but the most important range of Sauvignon Blanc that we have at Klein Constantia is the Klein Constantia Estate Sauvignon Blanc. And that is quite a big chunk of that. And it's quite important here is that the single vineyards, the Matisse, all these different projects we have installed to learn from. They're our R&D department, and we use everything that works in those to bring back to that estate Sauvignon Blanc. The idea is to get the estate Sauvignon Blanc all over the world and get everyone to enjoy this incredible Sauvignon Blanc from Klein Constantia. Vin de Constance, in terms of production, we can make anything from nothing to a decent amount. And that's my political answer. There's been a couple of vintages that we haven't released, and that's purely because they weren't good enough. We also had a massive revamp on the farm in that in 2011, we decided to start farming for the future. So we weren't completely sustainable. We maybe went a little bit too natural and organic in the way that we were doing things. So we walked away from all pesticides and herbicides and all the rest, and we tried to get the life back into the soil and all the rest. And naturally what happened is the vines kind of said, well, screw you, we really need that food and life and all the rest. And we're not used to not being spoon-fed. So 2010, we never produced, and the vine slowly recovered after 2010 to a point that we're now back up to a decent production again. So 10 was nothing. 2011 was a decent vintage in terms of Vinta Constance. 2012 was next to nothing. That was my first vintage. Probably the reason why I still have a job here. That was probably the most difficult vintage of my life. 2012. I just become head winemaker at Klein Constantia. And I'm going off topic because I don't want to talk about volumes. So yeah, literally had just taken over. It was a really tough vintage because it was wet and cold throughout the whole vintage.
For sure.
And we got to a point that we were almost ready to harvest the grapes, the Vinta Constance grapes, and we had a massive week long of rain. Yeah. So we had to leave it for another 3 weeks before we could harvest that. So we literally finished harvesting. It was the 27th of April, and I got married on the 30th of April. Wow. So it was a long, rough harvest. Yeah. Yeah, but it was incredible vintage. I think that's what I was trying to get to.
I'm sure you had some pretty high disease pressure at that point.
Yeah.
Letting them sit that long after a week's long worth of rain.
It was literally make or break, and we made the decision that we want to make the greatest wine in the world, or one of the greatest wines in the world. We can't play it easy or play it safe by harvesting before the grapes are perfect. So we left it up, and it actually paid off quite nicely.
Yeah, awesome. So let's you kind of first start off this conversation at the very beginning with, yes, you like history, but you want to talk about the future. Where do you see Klein Constantia in 20 years' time?
Cool. So hopefully I'm still around then. I think the owners of Klein Constantia were quite smart in hiring a young winemaker. It means that I can be there for the next 30 odd years. Where I see Klein Constantia is our goal. Our goal is to focus. Our goal is to focus on Vinta Constance, and we're trying to get it back to its former glory. So we need to tell the story a lot better. It is one of the most iconic, greatest sweet wines of the world. We just need to convince people that it is. We're convinced. We just need to get people to try it and buy into it. So we're aiming for greatness with Vinta Constance. We're aiming for one of the greatest sweet wines in the world. And in 20 years, if we do our job properly, we will eventually get there. The other thing is, Sauvignon Blanc, Klein Constantia will be known for Sauvignon Blanc. Everyone, people think about New Zealand and Sancerre now. Hopefully in the next 10 years, people are going to start saying, well, have you tried this, this weird wine from southern points of Africa from Klein Constantia? It's incredible Sauvignon Blanc, and it rivals those great New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs or those great Sancerre Sauvignon Blancs.
Sure.
So that's the goal. It's focus. Whether or not we're doing red wine then or Riesling or Chardonnay or anything like that, I think it's kind of irrelevant as long as we stick to those two main goals. We're also fortunate to have, shareholders that are so invested in this place that, they're so passionate about it, they'll leave no stone unturned until we get to that point. It's not just a hobby for them, it's a lifestyle. It's a great spot.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah, thinking about the future in South African white wines, there's still a lot. I think the door is still wide open, and the world just needs to check them out. Just be curious, and thinking about overall, like as a country, I would be tempted to say that South Africa has the best quality for price ratio on the planet. Yeah. People think, was it? Could it be New Zealand? Could it be this? Could it be that? If you look at the standard price of Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand these days, they're getting up there. Yeah. They used to be cheaper, but I do see the continued pursuit of excellence in winemaking with South African winemaking. I see the quality getting better. I think it has to. I also see the wines becoming more expensive. So ultimately, if you're a collector, now would be the perfect time to start buying them because they are still relatively cheap. Talking about all the different... Sorry.
I agree fully. I mean, South Africa has never been in such a great spot as what it is now. Yeah. There's incredible winemakers out there. There's incredible new vineyard growers. There's a new philosophy. There's a new life in the industry. And definitely, people need to forget about that, that perception that South African wines are cheap rubbish. There's been a lot of that flooded onto most markets. But there are some gems out there. There's some incredible wines. We make some of the best Bordeaux blends in the world, some of the best Cabernets in the world, best Sauvignon Blancs, you name it. We're a very small wine region or wine producing area, and you can, the spray of different wines that we're excelling at is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. So we talked about some of the partnerships and collaborations in the past with some of your friends from Sensor, with Pascal Jolivet. Do you foresee any additional collaborations or projects in the future in store for Klein Constantia?
It's quite tough to say. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the future holds. But in terms of future projects, I mean, as I said, our future goal is to focus on that sweet wine and to focus on Sauvignon Blanc, and that's our main projects. And we'll probably streamline a lot more and do a lot more like the French do and make 2 wines, and that's it. And focus is best. I'm not sure. I mean, we've got so many close relationships now throughout the wine world. I mean, it's amazing to have, our partners from Bordeaux and Hubert and Bruno, but it's also nice to be a very good friend of Sandrine at Chateau Yquem. It's nice to pop her an email and get some information from her, or, likewise with them. So it's a very small world, and I think that's what it will become more about, is collaborating more with our, business interests, I guess.
Sure.
We need to share as much as we can in order to succeed, I guess.
The wine called Matisse with the Pascal Jolivet collaboration is definitely an interesting one, and I enjoy its sincerity to the expression of the terroir, and it shows its identity. It wears it really, really well. It's very, very interesting. I was just thinking about Vin de Constance being a straw wine, and thinking about, well, who else makes straw wine in the world? And thinking it's not necessarily botrytized. It's the grapes are dried on straw mats. So I'm thinking.
So Vin de Constance, we're naturally dried on the vines. We don't. So we've tried to make it in the same way that we would have made it in the old days. We've done a lot of research into that, and that's because of the nature of muscat. It means that it can, if it's such thick skins, it doesn't get botrytis. It can withstand anything, and you can leave it on the vine, and it creates those perfect raisins. And that's what we rely on to give it that heart and soul of Vin de Constance. We harvest Vin de Constance in up to 30 different batches. We start picking end of January, and some vintages we finish picking end of April. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the complexity that goes into this wine. Random thing there is we've got Sarvis, which is the South African Wine and Spirits Board. There's actually no criteria for the wine Vin de Constance. There's no wine type out there. Yeah. So we call it a natural sweet wine. We actually classify it with them as a Noble Lake Harvest, although it's not. But it is its own. It's its own category, I guess. It's completely unique, and there's no other wine style or no other wine producer that makes a wine like this in the world, which is awesome.
Cool.
Trade secret.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's proprietary. It's good.
One pretty cool project that I'd love to do one day, just to mess with people, is a Matisse range, a Pinot Matisse from Sancerre. Because I mean, everyone knows Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre, but the Pinots are incredible. Wouldn't that be quite smart?
For sure. I'm gonna get myself a little more.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. So bright and acidic, and makes my mouth salivate. It's just wonderful stuff. Put this over here. Good stuff. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, the future is still so bright. You're such a talented young winemaker. What do you hope to achieve over your career and your lifetime in the wine field?
Tough question. It's a tough question, and a lot of people have asked me this, and like everyone says, well, don't you want to manage a property, or move to France and make wine there, or move to New Zealand, or whatever it is. I must start. I mean, I started very young as winemaker here, and I've been able to achieve a lot with the help that I've been given at this property, and I feel like a lot of the things are already ticked off my list. So now I need to start making a new list. And at the end of the day, my number one goal is to stick around at Klein Constantia, to be here for as long as I possibly can, and be involved in that. And I'm not just saying this if the owners of Klein Constantia are listening to this to keep me on the payroll, But at the end of the day, I mean, I want to achieve those goals. I want people to, 333 years from now, and that's how old Klein Constantia is, people to think back and say, what was the defining moments of the old days of the Constantia wines?
Sure.
And I'd love it to be that, the Vin de Constance became epic in that time, and Sauvignon Blanc became known as one of the greatest Sauvignon Blancs in the world. And if we do our job right now, hopefully I'll still be involved to take it to that level, and that's my goal. It is literally pure perfection in terms of those two wines. Let me see if I can get it through to that.
Awesome. So are there any other varietals that you'd like to work with in your career?
Yeah, there are, and we've actually planted a couple of them here at Klein Constantia. They're varietals that I find that are very interesting in terms of potentially improving Vin de Constance. So we've spoken about Muscat de Frontenac, but how do we increase it by that 1 point, or that 1%, or that 0.1%, and make it a better wine? So let's look at a couple of other cultivars or varietals and see what can work. So we've planted Petit Marsan, which will be really interesting because it'll be really good natural acidity, as well as the sweetness. So we just planted some of that. We're planting some ferment to see how it works. Cool. And the other one that we've now done 2 harvests with is Harsh Levalou. Yeah. And between those 3, they're quite exciting varietals to play around with and experiment with. We've done some Chenin as well to see what Chenin does. So they're cool little projects, and they're the unknown, and I guess the unknown is something nice to play with. Nice. So that's pretty much it. But I kind of want to be a Sauvignon Blanc guru, or a sweet wine guru. So those are the cultivars I really want to play with, and yeah.
Sure. When I was there last trying the Vin de Constance, I thought it'd be interesting to see if you would ever be amenable to playing with some of the Hungarian sweet varietals, and that go into making Tokai. And it's good to hear that you're at least curious about playing with them. Not necessarily that you will end up having to use them, but just curious about the world around you and seeing how they could be part of the blending partners into
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if we plant them and pull them out 3 years from now, it doesn't matter. Our job is to see what we can do better. I was very fortunate, talking about partners and all the rest. I was very fortunate. I think it was 2013. I actually did a harvest in Hungary in Tokai at Hetzolo. And we've had them out here quite a lot to check out the property and help us out and all the rest. It's quite nice to learn from all those things.
For sure. It's one thing that's interesting about the world right now is everyone is still, I mean, for those in the new world, there's still a lot of things that could be found. They're not as tightly regulated as parts of Europe are, with you can only grow this varietal in this region, and you're limited by these parameters. But yeah, I find that right now it's a very, very intriguing time to be alive in the world of wine. And
Cool.
things are always changing, and it's a very, very exciting time.
Yeah.
When you're not drinking your own wine, what wines are you drinking?
Sure. Jeepers. It's tough to say. There's a lot of really good wines in South Africa that we play around with. I love looking at French wines. I drink a lot of Bordeaux, having worked there a couple of times. I enjoy my Bordeaux stuff. I love Australian wines for some reason. Big old Barossa Shirazes. I've been drinking quite a bit of, one of my iconic wines is Grey Wacky.
Grey Wacky, yeah, sure.
I really love Grey Wacky's wild ferment Sauvignon Blanc. There's some incredible stuff out there we've been trying. I've been fortunate to get a lot of producers through Klein Constantia, and they come and visit us, and they all leave me with wines. It's nice to try all these different wines that I couldn't otherwise afford, you know?
True.
Yeah.
So I know it's late where you are. It's getting close to 11 p.m. I won't keep it much longer. Do you have any parting thoughts or last words for the viewers?
Yeah, sure. Buy South African wines, guys. They are incredible. There's some incredible producers in South Africa, and I mean, you can get it on your doorstep. You can buy Klein Constantia wines. We're imported by Winebo. We have Cape Ardle. You're able to buy it online, and they'll deliver it directly to you. I think wine.com, do it. Get out there, experiment with South African wines. If you never tried South African Sauvignon Blancs, do it. Check it out. You might be surprised. And definitely the value for money is incredible. We're much cheaper than most other regions in the world. And it's not a reason to buy it, but you will be blown away. Other than that, thanks for having me on the show. It's been an absolute privilege, Anthony. It's
been a pleasure.
Nice to talk geeky wine talk with people. I've been cooped up and I haven't spoken wine for the last 4 months, so it's nice to get out there and tell a bit of a story. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today for a chat. It's funny talking about buying South African wine. Actually, just last night, had a friend from Arizona, a chef, made some beautiful scallops, and on the table was the 2012 Klein Constantia Sauvignon Blanc, and I was like, "Wow, you got to check out tomorrow. That's what's going down."
There we go.
Awesome. Just a quick note to all the viewers. I see a few questions throughout the day popping up. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly at Sommelier Anthony Mueller, or if you have any questions for Klein Constantia, they'll go directly to their team, to Matt and his team. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Until then, join me next week as we keep the focus on South Africa throughout the entire month of July. Until then, be well, drink well.
Cheers, guys.
And be kind to others.
Thanks, Anthony.
Cheers.